Hey y'all, so let's pick up into this tying in. So the next day that we have is I'm called. And all manuscripts are a little bit different, they translate a little bit differently. But to define called, it is to speak of or address by a specific name. You are not just another person. You are not just another name, not just another number. God, our loving Father, has called you personally. He called you by your name, not by any mistake or error. Now, I want you to meditate on that for just a little bit. I'm going to meditate on that. That in all of the places where I have messed up, that is not what God calls me. God doesn't call me mistake. He doesn't call me goof. He doesn't call me failure. He doesn't call me mess up or screw up. He doesn't call me forgetful. He calls me Nancy Joe. He calls me by my name. The story of Zacchaeus is a beautiful picture of the way in which the Father calls us. Zacchaeus is a tax collector. He is not a well-liked man. In fact, his own people called him a man devoted to sin. And as Jesus was passing through Jericho, Zacchaeus thought this was his chance to get a glimpse of the one he'd heard about. So think about that. Zacchaeus had heard about Jesus, but he didn't know Jesus. He'd heard about him. He'd heard about all of the signs and this radical man, this rabbi, this miracle worker, but he did not know him. So Zacchaeus climbs a tree because he was too short to see over the crowd. And of course, he's not a well-liked man, so he's not going to push his way through, because what in the world, why would this man devoted to sin push in to see the rabbi, to see the teacher? Why would he feel like he should see Jesus or be close to Jesus? So he was too short to see over the crowd, but he was not going to miss this opportunity. Then something Zacchaeus never expected happened. Jesus looked up at him and called his name. Jesus did not say, "Hey, tax collector," or "Hey, sinner." Jesus didn't call him by his occupation, his reputation, or his mistakes. Jesus called him by his name. Zacchaeus, an Israelite, one of God's chosen people. He was valuable and known. Everyone around was astonished, though I imagine none was more surprised than Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus was in a tree, out of the way, obscured by limbs, quiet, yet not hidden from Jesus. Jesus saw this man's heart. He knew this man's heart was to get a glimpse of this one who changed lives. And Zacchaeus, just like any of us, don't like to be known by our mistakes. We don't desire to habitually live in sin. It's not that, life is enjoyable that way. And sometimes we feel like we get stuck in a rut and we can't get out. But even though our heart longs to get out, but Jesus is freedom. Remember in John 8, he who the Son sets free is free indeed. So Zacchaeus longed for what Jesus had to offer. He was not hidden from Jesus. Try as he might, I'm going to get as close as I can. But Jesus called him out by name. How could Jesus, this righteous man, this rabbi, fellowship with such filth as Zacchaeus? Isaiah 43:1 says, "But now, in spite of past judgments for Israel's sin. Thus says the Lord, He who created you and He who formed you, fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have ransomed you by paying a price instead of leaving you captive. I have called you by name. You are mine. I love the way He calls us. In spite of our past, He calls us. He doesn't leave us captives. He calls us out of slavery, a captive no more. And we're going to dig into being called next week. I'll see you then. Bye, y'all.